Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Weekly Notice. We are on episode 27. Today is the 29th of September. Please leave your questions and comments for me throughout the live stream. I'll get to it towards the end. I actually really appreciate the chatter that goes on during the live stream. I do read it, you guys. Obviously, during the show, I'm not really able to read the comments that are happening live, but afterwards, I like taking a look. The feedback and also seeing your responses to the various stories that I highlight are very helpful and important to me, and it's part of the whole live experience, right? It's that live interaction between myself and the audience. So let's see, where do I start off on the news? I This is entirely one person show, and I obviously host it, but I produce it on my own. I run it on my own, which is why it's such a, in terms of the studio space and its so-called studio space, everything's quite bare bones. um and so now we've had t- more than so today is the 27th episode. My format generally is that I look at the news of the week that I think is important to highlight and talk about, and I just go right into it. And I wonder if I should start off maybe in the beginning talking about some personal stuff in terms of like um how life has been for me in the past week with all the various events. I don't know. I tend to err on the side that Andy Ngo as a person, though many of you might quite like me, I think I'm uninteresting in that. Even my opinions, I would say, for the most part, are relatively uninteresting. I think the value I bring to the audience is that I report on news and state facts. So I would like to hear your feedback, though. Let me know what you think. I'm in this weird space of where I primarily do writing, but I'm also on social media, and I'm also doing this live stream stuff, and so it intersects in a weird way. It puts me um in front of the camera in a way that maybe other r- traditional writing journalists aren't. Or if they are, they're in interview only settings, whereas this setting where I'm looking directly at the camera is it's a bit more personal, right? Nobody's interviewing me. It's me speaking to you all for an hour. But I'm curious to think what are your thoughts on all of this? So, um, I'm going to start off with talking about Jordan Peterson. He's been in the news. Well, he's always kind of in the news, but um, he's in the news because, well, he's in the middle of his world international tour. It's restarted since earlier this year, towards the end of last year, possibly, once some of the COVID restrictions were lifted. So he had a another best-selling book that came out. I believe it was in last year that it came out. And so he's doing the tours where, if you've been to any of these events, I've been to a few of them. I think the first one I went to was back in Portland in 20, it would have been 2018, I think. When in the early years of his like really big mainstream success, and naturally Portland, um, there was a sizable left wing demonstration outside the event. There wasn't any violence, but I interviewed people at that time for a podcast that I was doing, and they're saying the same stuff that they're saying now, that he is far right, that he's a misogynist, that he's transphobic, etc., etc. I would say these are lies. Not that I would say, actually, because you can point to his own arguments, and these protesters, if you interview any of them, you will struggle to find any who have actually read his work. They've only read characterizations of his work in biased left wing press and what activists say. But he's currently in Europe right now. So he was recently first in the, well, he's been traveling between the UK and the European continent. Um, Let me pull up something. So uh, he was recently in London, and I got to see him speak. And oh, hmm, hold on, let's see. Um, I'm trying to pull up the picture. I'm having some difficulty. Anyways, it's okay. It's just a picture of Jordan and I that I was going to show because I think it is nice, but it's okay. I can describe it. So he came to London, and there was absolutely no protest or anything. I'm not surprised by that, even though London is predominantly left, a center liberal city. It doesn't have the type of radical militant leftist politics that you see in some left wing cities in America, in places like Berlin. Um, but after leaving the UK, he went to, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna just pull up my report so you can see. So this is a report that I wrote on my locals, which is ngo.locals.com. No Go Zone is the name. You can support me there. I've been testing out some of these article publishing on here, like kind of self-publishing, and I think it's been going pretty well. Let me know what you think if you read any of them. So earlier this week, I wrote about Antifa's plans to shut down Jordan Peterson's event in Berlin, which was actually earlier tonight. And so the official account for the Berlin Antifa, which is you can see the tweet on the left here. Let me zoom it in. Oops. Um, So they wrote actually in English. On September 29, Jordan Peterson will be performing at the Tempodrome in Berlin. Peterson has been supplying a mob of misogynists and neo Nazis with ideology for years. No show for sexist and racist. And they put down their meeting place, which was Yorkstrasse and Mehringdamm. It's just an area in Berlin close to the venue, and they put out a series of these online posters like wanted, with a subtle, or maybe not so subtle, nod and wink towards maybe incitement of violence. You can see the Antifa symbol on top of the wanted text with the two flags. um, Here's another flyer that they put out: no show allowed for misogynists and Trump fans. And then they have a picture of people from the alt-right Charlottesville rally in 2017, which had and has nothing ever to do with Jordan Peterson. Um, but nonetheless, this is what they do. They lie. I am speaking to you as one of the victims of their nonstop lying. So because a measured argument against, I would say, Jordan Peterson or some of these opponents of Antifa would actually not really convince that many left wing people. They have to lie about their targets. So, they have to say that he's a fascist, that he inspires fascists, that he's a misogynist, that he is a transphobe, and that he's a far right extremist and he must be stopped by any means necessary. So, the interesting thing about the event in Berlin, though, is that the venue that hosted it successfully, by the way, it already ended a couple hours ago. But the Tempodrome is in a borough of Berlin called Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg. If you have any idea about Berlin politics, that borough is the most radical left-wing area in terms of the politicians that come out of there and represent those constituents, as well as the organizing that happens there. Um, Antifa uh, have many of these like squats that are in this borough, and so squats are also like their autonomous zones. You know, sometimes it can be confined to like a particular lot or a certain number of buildings. And they rioted there a lot. That's their May Day riots always go through there. They target um, police when police are responding to clearing out these illegal squats. They will riot and attack police. They'll use fire bombs. They set vehicles on fires, and of course, they break windows and et cetera, et cetera. But the venue is in that borough, so it was for Antifa seen as a particular provocation because they seen, you know, this was like in their area. Um, so they a number of tweets from their official Antifa account. Um, with these flyers. And they even held a training, believe it or not, um, days ago. So on September 17th, there's an Antifa bar slash meeting space called Bandito Rosso in Berlin. And so they had like a big training on Jordan Peterson. And um, this was the only picture they released. It's from the back, so you don't see anybody's faces, but you see the Antifa flag here on the right in the photo, and then from whatever projection they had on there, they have various alt-right people, and they're trying to make spurious connections that don't actually exist, but somehow tie him to Jordan Peterson. I've been the victim of that, and these lies. The goal is that they try to lie about a target so much that they hope eventually some of it sticks, particularly with the ignorant, um, ignorant people who don't bother to look further into anything. They just hear things or they'll Google things and they'll see accusations and think that, where there's an accusation, there must be some truth. It's really unfortunate because, I mean, it's a form of destroying people's reputations. Fortunately, for Jordan Peterson, he's a mainstream figure. So a lot of people in the mainstream, have been able to see through the lies. And what's more unfortunate is, when there's like regular people who are targeted who have no way to voice because they have no platform and no defenders. And then they just, they're screwed. So this was a big Jordan coming to this part of Berlin was a big deal for them. Let's see. And even before he came to Berlin, he was in Amsterdam recently, and there was Antifa there. Relatively small group. We're talking a couple of dozen people, and only a few of them were masked up in black bloc. They had a lot of their leftist allies come out. So this was posted by, or the photos were taken by a Japanese journalist, Masako Ganaha. Follow her on Twitter if you don't already. She does very good work. They passed out flyers. And yeah, here's some video of it. So yeah, kind of I don't know if one would say low energy, but yeah, this is a peaceful protest and protected within the law. And Jordan Peterson fans, treated it basically as a um, something to take pictures in front of because it's amusing. This is in Amsterdam. I'm gonna show you the footage from Berlin. Hold on. Okay. So ahead of the event, Antifa had plastered out a ton of their flyers around the city. So I showed some in them earlier, the digital forms, but this is all over that one borough that I was telling you about where they claim it as their space. So you see their like logo, no show allowed for sexist and racist. And they put the location of where the direct action is. Here's a picture from within the crowd. You can see their Antifa flag on the right here, this red and black one with the two flag logo. Choke on your lobster. They had lots of flyers and banners. Here's the wanted sign that they plastered around the city as well. So this is Berlin. Here's a close up. So yeah, in the pictures they use old ones of Peterson meeting some of his fans. There's one where somebody put out a Pepe flag, somebody wearing a shirt, "I'm a proud Islamophobe," and then somebody wearing a MAGA hat. So these were seen as used as spurious examples that he's linked to extremism. It's not a link, but this is how desperate they are. Here is his video of their march. This is exclusive video for me. And you can see it was quite a large audience size. There were hundreds of them. So they held their banners, no show allowed for racist, sexist, Nazi patriarchy, good night, white pride. You see a lot of the signs are in English, and I'll play some of the videos. A lot of speeches are in English as well. They're doing that because they're trying to appeal to the international audience, because Antifa is an international movement. There's a lot of police because Antifa are so violent in Germany, and Germany's police forces have been dealing with militant violence for years, and so they sort of tolerate, these type of direct actions. Like here, they're just marching on the street, but there was another part where they actually shut down the road, and police just allowed them to do it because, doing mass arrests is just too resource-intense things. So they just let them do their things and hope that they're not going to attack people or to riot and break stuff. It's a gamble because quite often they do end up breaking things and attacking people. And on May Day this year, if you were watching my live stream, you would have seen footage from the Antifa May Day in Berlin, which is in this same area, by the way. And that ended in violence that night. They set a car on fire. They were throwing lots of glass bottles at police. There was like blood all over the ground. And that was actually called a relatively peaceful event, surprisingly, by the German press, because usually it ends up in so much more violence every year. I don't know if you caught it, but as part of this, they had a vehicle with a whole bunch of speaker equipment. And so they were all heading to the venue where Jordan Peterson is. Here's rare video up from inside the group, so you can kind of see them up close. And their various banners, you see them black bloc, all covering their faces. Okay, here's a picture of one of the big banners. They use these banners obviously to show who they are, but it serves another purpose, which is it's for them to hide behind. I don't see this tactic actually employed with the American Antifa, interestingly. So far, I've really only have seen this in Germany. Okay. Here's a video of them speaking in English. Watch.
Peterson is on his world tour right now, where he provides fascists, misogynists, homophobic and transphobic people with pseudoscientific theories and ideologies. A person like Peterson should not be offered a stage, not here and not anywhere. We demand no shows for racists and sexists. Fuck off, Jordan B. Peterson. Woo!
So a lot of speeches like that. Some were threatening, I would say, but they always kind of veil their threats, because in Germany, there is no First Amendment. So if you incite violence, that is, the threshold for that is a lot lower than how it is in the U.S. From the U.S., you can go pretty far on what you can say in terms of death threats and all that. Unfortunately, in Europe, the tolerance for that's much lower. So they're kind of careful with what they say. Forgive me. This video of them. So this is a lot. I mean, this is a large showing. Not that surprising. I mean, it is Berlin, which is a very militant, leftist city. Yeah, and so they were marching to the Tepodrome venue, which from their initial gathering place was about a 20-minute walk. And then once they got there, they surrounded the front of the outside. Police were very well prepared for this. I'm going to show you the video. Props to the police in Berlin, because I mean, it looked like the goal of the Antifa was to break inside the venue and to try to stop it by any means necessary, but they couldn't. So they're saying, the translation of what they're shouting in German, it translates to "no shows allowed for perpetrators." And by perpetrators, what they're trying to say is that Jordan Peterson and his supporters or his followers or fans are perpetrators of racism and sexism and fascism and transphobia. So they're shouting "Alerta, alerta, antifascista," which is an Italian chant. The Antifa all across Europe, doesn't matter which country, they will chant that same statement. They use a lot of foreign language words in their messaging. They think it makes them sound cool and international. The American Antifa do that as well, but they use things like "alerta," "communicate," and things such as that. Yeah. And then there's more. So they were unable to break inside the venue, so they just basically threw a tantrum outside. They had their speakers and they were screaming. His video. So this went on for quite a while, and police kept them away, and then eventually the Antifa actually gave up. They told their comrades to go home. And my analysis from this, I think, is that I think they made a strategic decision not to escalate their direct action into like militant violence, because they recognize that Jordan Peterson is such a mainstream figure, is popular in Canada and America and around the world, and if he and or his entourage or his people attending the event at a very big venue. I mean, Tempodrome is one of the biggest venues in Berlin. Has big acts go there. If any of those were subjected to violence by Antifa, it would be a scandal in the news. It would be covered, and it would be bad PR for Antifa. So I think that's why they called off their direct action. They're very strategic in who they attack, for example. I mean, and that's why they also attack press and are very careful to make sure that the only people who are let into or nearby their spaces are either propagandists or fellow travelers with cameras, or other leftists and liberals who support their cause. Those are the only people who are allowed in, because then the narrative can be carefully controlled. So the event went off with no issues with the people inside. Berlin police kept the peace. Okay. Um, please leave your questions and comments for me. There's still a lot more to get through this show. So it's been a really busy week for me with reporting. So I was keeping very close eyes on Antifa in Berlin in relation to the Jordan Peterson event. But there was another report I did that was published early this morning um, about an Antifa member in San Diego, a trans Antifa member who just yesterday pled guilty for her role in a very violent riot and attack on people in on Pacific Beach in January 2019. This is the person. It the militant's legal name is Erich Louis Jach, but she now says she's trans and told the court she goes by the name Nikki, and at one point she objected to being referred to as Mr. Yach. So, um, keeping in line with what how big tech controls our language and decides what is true or not true. Um, I'm gonna go by the rules and refer to this person with she, her pronouns. But legally, and in court, meaning the jail records, this individual is listed as a 6 foot four, 6 foot 4 male, and Erich is currently in a men's facility. Anyways, so this case is part of a larger one a larger story that I've been reporting on for quite a while. I'm gonna go back to this for a sec, but I'll go back to my earlier reporting. So this is a report that I did for Newsweek in December of last year. That was when prosecutors in San Diego's first announced a whole set of felony charges against what they said were two cells of belonging to Antifa in San Diego and LA. That the Antifa carried out, or planned, uh, had a violent conspiracy to carry out a riot and to attack people at Pacific Beach. There was a pro Donald Trump rally on the beach. But in addition to those people that were attacked there were minors that were attacked. There was a man and his dog that were going on a walk that got attacked. And so in the videos, you'll see what the Antifa did. You can see is a picture from it. They had their flags, and they just began pepper spraying almost indiscriminately, or bear macing. You can see all this yellow stuff on these victims. So they blind their targets and then they start beating them and attacking them and hitting them with projectiles. Um, by the way, prosecutors showed evidence in court. In this picture, you can actually see Erich Jach in this picture. She's the one in the red and black here spraying something right here in this photo, wearing sunglasses and a mask, by the way. So there's lots of videos from that attack. Um, I wrote about and this is a photojournalist was beaten, by the way. I think he hit with the bat? He was hit with some weapon. Anyways, it was very brutal assault. And these are some suspects that were charged. So this is Erich Louis Jach, who's now the first to plead guilty, the first to be convicted in the case. There are 10 others, by the way, with the cases pending. I had to do a lot of investigating to find their pictures because San Diego County does not release the mugshots. In fact, they actually had a order that photographers who took photos in the courtroom at the various hearings that have been happening for months now, they weren't able to show the faces, but that order has recently been lifted, by the way. Here's another one. I've reported on him before because he's dating a woman who works in the public defender's office. Conflict of interest. This is Jesse Morel Cannon. So these are all Antifa members. Here's another one, Jonah Abraham Bigel here. Luis Francisco Mora, BLM activist here from LA, Jeremy Jonathan White. So what was really significant about this case and what's really angered many leftists and Antifa, obviously, is that the prosecutors explicitly lay out and say in the charging documents that they belong to Antifa. So this claim that Antifa doesn't exist. People say that because they'll point to like court documents and say, "Look, the court documents for these riot suspects. It never says Antifa." But that's intentional, actually, by the prosecutors. Which it was why it was such a big deal in San Diego for them to say, "Look, this was actually conspiracy involving a network of multiple cells in Southern California, from inside and outside of San Diego County." And well, they had their first conviction. And so let me pull up my report again that came out. It's published on the Post Millennial. By the way, this report is the second time that I've co-written with Ava Knott. You see, she's on the byline. She does excellent work, San Diego-based journalist. Please follow her on Twitter if you don't already, Ava Knott. Um, so here's a video from one of those from the attack, by the way. See, first attack by pepper spraying, they take off running. And then here comes the Rouge hair. You see the weapons, they have sticks, and then people beating someone on the ground, they have a bat, throwing projectiles at people. That's just one video. There were a whole bunch of, the attacks went on for quite a while. The witnesses that I talked to said that police did not intervene. Police also were injured, by the way. Erich Jach pleaded guilty to conspiracy to riot. That's a felony, assaulting multiple people, and using tear gas as a weapon. As part of the plea deal, by the way, Yach had other pending criminal cases, not pending, separate criminal cases. So she was actually out on bail when she committed these other felonies with this riot. So all of these cases, there were actually 3 cases that were ruled together into one as part of the plea deal. So she pled guilty to being a felon on prison grounds and committing new felonies while out on jail. There was a misdemeanor case from a separate incident that was dismissed as part of the plea agreement. But anyway, she's supposed to be. It is expected that prosecutors will seek 4 years and 9 months prison sentence for this individual. Sentencing will happen later on this year in November. What's interesting, though, is that she, as part of a plea agreement and admitting to these various felonies, also ratted out her Antifa comrades, by the way. So she talks, these names are the same ones I just talked about from the Newsweek. So these are others who are facing their own separate cases being prosecuted. But she says who she was conspiring with, who she worked with to attack this victim, this other victim. Yeah, so read the report, and here's a picture of Nikki, as she prefers to be called. She's a career criminal. She does have a prior felony conviction for domestic violence, by the way. So that is a compounding reason for why they're seeking a relatively long prison sentence. Some more video from this was before they began attacking people. This is from Pacific Beach that same day. So there's quite a lot of Antifa. You see all their signs, Antifa flag. They had a sign that said Ashley Babbitt deserved it. Here, Ashley Babbitt deserved it. Yeah. Here's some of the photos of the other suspects, by the way, so their cases are pending. So read the report on the post-millennial. It was co-written by Abenot. Okay. One of the recurring topics that I talk about is Black on Asian crime, and it keeps happening in the United States. I'm gonna give a content warning. This video it shows violence. It's not particularly graphic, but I mean the person suffered very serious injuries. Um, it occurred on the 15th of September, but the video has just recently been released. So this happened in Wilmington, Delaware. Um, President Biden's home turf, I believe. So a 68-year-old Korean American jewelry shop owner was repeatedly pistol whipped and stomped on by a black male suspect during a armed robbery. The suspect, Calvin Ushery, who has a criminal history, is a black man. He's 39 years old. He's been arrested and charged over this. The victim's family, speaking on behalf, says that he's currently unable to walk and has difficulty speaking because of his serious head injury. So let me show you this video. There's no sound. He grabs him by the neck and puts the gun to his head and just begins beating him with it. And he collapses to the ground, and the robber jumps over and just continues to beat him, kicking him in the face, stomping on him. Yeah. So I think the reason why I highlight these cases is the Stop Asian Hate campaign stood out to me because of the fact that those who use that hashtag and the Democrats that advocated for it, they only cared about stopping the hate if the hate came from one particular direction, the direction of white on Asian hate or white on Asian violence. And the cases that they point to often doesn't even have a racial dynamic to any of it. But they'll use it. I'm talking about like the Atlanta spa shootings. That was from the evidence that's released to the public, somebody who had a sex addiction problem and was a patron of these spas that also provide sex services. And that was painted as falsely that he had an animus for Asian Americans and was just wanting to go on a killing rampage. This next picture is of the elderly Korean American man. You can see, he's bleeding profusely. There is a GoFundMe that's been set up by his family. Help my dad recover from robbery and severe assault. So $76,000 has already been raised, and the family just is trying to get him a retirement fund so he can stop. So in addition to that happening this month, there was more incidents in other parts of the U.S. that were similar. I'm gonna play. Okay. This is an incident that happened in Chicago. This is the red line. It's the subway system. You can see it's an Asian a man of Asian heritage. And he's confronted by two black men who rob him and then assault him. So one's holding a bottle in his hand. So they're going through his pockets.
Charmaine, get back. Charmaine.
pushing him around. Watch.
Oh my
Boom, hit him on the head with the bottle.
Charmaine.
You know, they already got whatever they wanted from his pocket, and then
Oh my god.
you know he's just sitting there holding his head, and then you can just see he begins to bleed profusely.
Charmaine, get back. Charmaine, get back. Oh my god. Oh my god. Charmaine. Get back! He's bleeding!
I'm taking it Hell yeah, because I actually pretend.
Wait, let us out! I'm gonna get that. Charmaine, come on. Charmaine, come on.
So, as far as I know, the two suspects have not been apprehended, although the last I looked into this was a day ago, so I don't know if there's been a development in 24 hours. I posted that video because it had just happened and the suspects were wanted. And then, well, I got criticized a lot by, the far left. Go figure. Let me show you some of the comments I got. It's this guy, John Greenfield. He runs his own blog in Chicago. He's a leftist activist. He wrote, "It's disgusting to see provocateur Andy Ngo use a tragic attack on the CTA Red Line as fodder for his far-right propaganda efforts." And he posted a screenshot that crops out the suspects who were and possibly may still be at large, and then just shows the victim. There's a certain perception in the far left where horrific, tragic attacks, incidents that are committed by somebody from their protected class, that highlighting, even reporting on it in a neutral way, as I did, is that's fascist propaganda. I think it gives you, I don't know, it's a particular insight into how they see the world, right? It's like things that have empirically happened and can prove shown to have happened. Bringing attention to that and stating the facts is seen as somehow to do with far right extremism in its propaganda. Whereas what they do, when they actually mislead people on events that are in the news, such as various claims around George Floyd and other BLM figures, that's not propaganda. That's just social justice, and that's news. But yeah, they're quite threatened by these videos and incidents that keep showing over and over. And even left-wing Asian Americans are also carry water for the BLM militants. And unfortunately, a lot of Asian American journalists as well. They don't like talking about these incidents because these are people who, while their parents may have come from another country, they were born and or raised and brought up in the American education system and have been brainwashed into CRT. So they view things as sort of like, when their elders are beaten, attacked, and or killed or robbed, that it's best to stay silent, because if they bring attention to it, it just empowers the far right or it's propaganda. It's a really sad state on how things are with Asian American media, by the way. Okay. Drag queens have been in the news a lot. There's a bit of a, Pride Month was June. That came and went months ago, but Pride events are still happening. So it's not just Pride Summer. I mean, it's autumn now, so now it's like Pride year. And a lot of events that have happened. I mean, the big change in them compared to, I would say, in the past is now there's a big effort to make some of these events targeted at children, which, while families and children have attended pride events for quite a long time, that wasn't like an advertised aspect of these events, and it wasn't like children were not like a target demographic, whereas they are now openly so. And there are certain videos that have come out, and they have happened in many places that, are actually red areas, like in Tennessee, for example. So here's a video from the Chattanooga Pride event, Pride Youth event on the 24th of September. This video went quite viral. It shows so there were multiple events in this brewery, and you can see this child touching the groin area of a performer. Um, and I'll play it again in case you missed it. So the Pride event actually came out and clarified that, oh, these three Disney princess performers actually are biological women. That's actually the word they use, which is quite interesting because these are the same groups that say trans women are women and there's no difference and that there's no such thing as even a biological woman. But they say it here actually, I guess, because it's convenient now. I guess it's seen as less problematic if the child's rubbing the groin area of a woman performer than somebody who has a penis. Here's another performer. Watch. Yeah. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of controversy over this. The organizers stand by their event though and say that they stand up against racism, bigotry, and transphobia. Um, in Also in Tennessee, this is on the 23rd of September. And so this was in Memphis, by the way. The Memphis Museum of Science and History actually shut down an official drag show and intergenerational dance party event. This is drag queen that was confronting police. She was furious. So she's asking, why is it shut down? Why is it shut down? So a lot of leftists online blame police. They thought the police shut it down. Actually, the police didn't. The museum came out and said that they, and they're the organizers of the event, canceled it because out of an abundance of caution, because there were protesters outside, and some of the protesters were legally open carrying firearms. There, as far as I know, was no threat that they were going to shoot those weapons, or nor did they point them at anybody. But the museum used that as the excuse to shut it down, which, by the way, I think is wrong. Um, uh, Principally, I'm against events being canceled because of people fearing for potential violence. If there's, you know, I mean, I, for example, was invited to speak earlier this year at Dartmouth, and I went there. And 2 hours before the event, the organizers canceled it, and they pointed to online threats. It just makes it really convenient for events to get shut down. And regardless of whether one agrees or disagrees with these drag events, I think these child-friendly drag events, I think um, you have to recognize that the performers in the museum have a First Amendment right as well. And so I don't like that there are people who oppose these events who are coming with weapons. I mean, it's similar to what the Antifa did in Texas recently. If you remember when Antifa came armed with guns to protect the family drag show event. I just Maybe this has to do with me coming from an immigrant background through my family, but I think the normalization of bringing deadly weapons to protests, that's bad. Particularly protests that are around highly controversial issues where people are really passionate, because it really only takes, not really, it only takes one person to use that weapon to kill somebody or kill a lot of people. And yeah, so those are my thoughts. There was also um, one more video I'm going to show. So all over the country, there's just so many I can't even show you, just from the past few days of these family-friendly drag events. So this was outside a library in Queens, New York City. So all those people with umbrellas, Antifa is part of that, the far left is part of that. They came out, they said that people who are protesting peacefully against the event are harassing children. So this is a drag queen story hour event that happened inside. Yeah, so Antifa's newest pet project cause is to go out and to help protect these family-friendly drag queen events for children. Okay. Please send me your questions and comments. I'm going to give a couple updates to some stories that I covered in the past. Stephen Sharp, a number of months ago, back in May, I talked about this individual. So he is a anti-police left-wing activist, big BLM supporter, and this is his Twitter. As you can see, there's a pig cop, and then it's all black with BLM, F to police, BLM, F Trump. So he's just this, he has a long leftist social media history. He was arrested in Vancouver, Washington. Vancouver is right next to Portland, Oregon, and a lot of the Antifa violence in Portland in 2020 even bled over to Vancouver periodically. But he was arrested and accused by investigators and prosecutors of possessing child sex abuse content. And he also said that he had urinated in the milkshake mixture at the Arby's where he worked, and that he doesn't know if it was served to people. He has no memory of it. It probably was served to people. Police called for victims to come forward. Unfortunately, no one did, but he has pleaded guilty to it now this week. So that's the big update. He was sentenced to more than 5 years in prison. So he pleaded guilty over the possessing the child sex abuse content, and also of the assault related to contaminating food and drink with his bodily discharge. A local health director in Washington State did say that there was no significant risk to consuming urine-tainted drinks. Yep, so that's an update on Stephen Sharp. I have another update on something Portland related. So last week I talked about Tabitha Poppins, this individual. Legal name is Tabitha Curtis, formerly known as Peter Wilson Curtis. Is a trans Antifa rioter in Portland. She gained a little bit of notoriety in 2020 because she was arrested multiple times. She went in the riots wearing heels and a dress, and she had facial hair, and yeah, that's what she looked like. Anyways, Tabitha went missing last week in the Columbia River, just north of Portland. She was reportedly paddle boating and then struggled in the water. There was a helicopter search effort, and they were unable to find her. And she was presumed to be dead, and I was first to break that. Antifa organized actually a search for her. So the community alert her, missing comrade Tabitha. So they were requesting drones. They had people bring a pet dog to try to do sniffing. I'm not sure what training the dog would have to find Tabitha, but that's what Antifa were doing. They were unable to find her, and after 5 days, her body was found miles up the river. Uh, yeah, so her body has been found, and that's the update to this unfortunate story. Tabitha fathered two children, and my sources tell me that she allegedly neglected the children in part to become a full-time protest rioter in 2020. She was also traveling to different places. She posted about it on her social media. She went from Portland all the way to Louisville, went to DC, and she allegedly was making good money from that, actually, because people were pouring a lot of money into these protest crowdfunding things that dispersed the money to the participants. But yeah, okay. I wanted to let you all know that my book is going to have a Brazilian release. So, Unmasked Inside Antifa's Radical Plan to Destroy Democracy came out in January of last year. Earlier this year, paperback updated release is out. If you don't have that yet, it has a new significant long chapter addition to it, which I highly recommend you read. It goes into detail of my beating that happened last year in Portland. Um, um, so this is a cover for the Portuguese language Brazilian release. It's a powerful cover. So it's going to be released later on in October. It's available for pre-order now. Brazil is about to have the elections, by the way, between Bolsonaro, who's the conservative candidate, and a left-wing candidate. And the press and the activists there are again framing this as the battle of democracy versus fascism. Sounds very familiar to Americans, I'm sure. Okay, I am going to get to your questions and comments now in the last few minutes. Bannon War Room Book Club asks, does the new British Prime Minister Liz Truss have the trust of people you talk to? What people have to understand about the British Conservative Party, also known as the Tories, is that it's not like the American Republican Party. In the UK context, it's the more conservative option, but you can think of them actually probably much, much more like moderate Democrats if you were try to, come up with an American equivalent. And then the British Labour Party is to the left of that. Everything is just much more moderate in the UK. And, that annoys a lot of people on both the right and the left. They want things to be more radical and to be more polarized like the US. And here, people are just more. I don't know if chill's the right word. Maybe it's more. There's just this. It's hard to describe if you don't spend much time in Britain. They're like, just like British people generally find American style um, political polarization very off-putting. Like, a Fox News or an MSNBC type of channel couldn't really do well in the UK. They have a news station that's GB News is called the Fox News of Britain, but it's not really. I mean, they have conservative commentary on it, but you can see it's less heated. So that's also then reflected at, the elite political party levels in the Conservative Party. And there are some conservatives who feel like the Conservative Party in the UK are not actually conservative. They don't dare to touch any cultural stuff. They don't touch abortion. They don't touch gay marriage. They don't touch Uh, Even when they talk about immigration, they've struggled to, and they have a majority in parliament. They've struggled to clamp down on illegal mass migration that's been increasing through on the English Channel. Migrants coming up through Europe, from Africa, from the Middle East, uh, from the Balkans and Europe, and just taking a boat over from France to the southern coast of England, and they're doing that in the thousands every day. And the Conservatives have been unable to stop it. So, okay. Francis Blueberg wrote, "It seems Andy has now become Antifa's equivalent to Ayaan Hirsi Ali to Islam. Would it be fair to say?" Gosh, I actually really appreciate that question. Ayaan Hirsi Ali is a personal hero to me. If you haven't heard of her, she's the um, uh, Somali ex-Muslim who gained a lot of notoriety a number of years ago when she was a member of parliament in the Netherlands. She spoke out very critically about Islam, its tenets, and issues with Muslim migrants and immigration in Europe. And she was subjected to numerous death threats and attempts on her life. A filmmaker she worked with on a story about Islam's um, treatment of women. This is Theo van Gogh in 2000, maybe seven. I forget what year. Um, was murdered on the streets of the Netherlands by jihadists. So she's for a number of years now, more than a decade, has relocated to the United States. Sometimes you see her on Fox News talking. She's a great person. If you don't follow her already on social media, she's still keeping on with the same beat of researching and writing about radical Islam and its relation to Western culture. Okay. Thank you for your questions and comments, people. Um, want everyone to be reminded that I have a YouTube channel where my older live streams are uploaded. Here we go. So it's Ending Alive. Just search that in the search bar and you'll find it. And it has the videos. And I'm still working my way through uploading them. There's a lot to go through because, I mean, we have more than 24 episodes? Yeah, 27 episodes with this one. So there's a lot. And if you can, please consider supporting me. This is a tweet that I have pinned on my Twitter. So if you go to andy-ngo.com, that's my official website. There's a contact form there where you can send me news tips or comments even. And you can see my articles, for example, and the various videos that I uploaded, such as older episodes of Weekly Notice. There's also a donate section, and where you can securely donate one time, any amount, make it recurring or make it once. And there are links to my various crowdfunding platforms that are sort of the backbone that allow me to continue doing what I do. So ngo.locals.com is a place where you can support me. Most of the content, like by most, I mean like 95% of the stuff I post is not behind any paywall block. So you can choose to donate however much you want per month. I also have a Patreon and also a Subscribe So I leave the options open. Your support is how I'm able to continue this because the pay for journalism, unfortunately, written journalism is not it's not very good, which is why a lot of people end up going into like YouTube commentary or they go on television, because the pay is better. But written journalism is really important, and I'm thankful that there are people both in establishment and independent media that do really good work. There are a lot of crap ones, we all know about those, and there are some who do really, really excellent work. Okay, everyone, thank you very, very much, and I will see you next week at 7 p.m. on Thursday. Andy Ngo's Weekly Notice. Goodbye.